Hi, this is Dr. Graham. General Psychology, Chapter 10. We're going to be talking about stress today. This is an experiment. As I told you in my emails, I want to try to do this to provide everyone the opportunity to have a lecture. Given that there's time constraints on everybody's life, we're going to try this out to see if it works. You're able to play the video over and over just like any other video that we have discussed in class. So what I want to do today is I want to talk about some basic concepts of stress. Um, you have the lecture slides, and I want you to go through the chapter outline on stress. But stress is an everyday thing for all of us. We travel in and out of Atlanta. We come in, we fight the traffic. We're stressed with our class schedules. We're stressed with health. As you know, I've had a problem with coughing as a extension of my cold. I went to see my doctor yesterday, and he kind of said, well, the good news is that we can treat it with some specific medication. The bad news is can't tell you when it's going to go away. So hopefully I won't be coughing during these video sessions, but what I want to do is I want to talk about stress. So what is stress? Stress is the process by which we perceive, respond to certain events called stressors. So we respond to a stress. Just when we discuss the autonomic nervous system, we have the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic is what gets us amped up. It's what causes us to get excited prior to a performance, either a sport performance, music. If you get amped up prior to a class presentation, you get amped up prior to an exam. That is what I consider good stress. The bad stress is if the parasympathetic system, which lowers our stress levels, as we talked about and as you notice with the Yerkes Dodson law with the bell-shaped curve, as you go up towards the curve, it's that excited stress, that excited anxiety where you are excited about doing something, performing, and then when you reach that point of executing that performance, the exam or whatever, your stress and anxiety level comes down. The problem is if it keeps going up and continue past the bell, past the peak point of the bell, then it becomes it could lead to a psychological disorder. So what we're referring to here is the fight or flight response with the autonomic nervous system. The stress videos that I had you see the beginning of the semester or the middle of the semester, you'll notice that the instructor was very entertaining in how he described what stress is and what the fight or flight response is. And what I always thought was a little bit comical was a reference to a werewolf. You have a choice of running or fighting. Well, fight or flight is just that. When you're confronted by a stressor, you immediately assess whether it's a threat or a challenge. If it's a threat, that's flight. You run, you get away. If it's a challenge, you go into it, and that's the fight aspect. So there's three types of stressors that we deal with or that we're confronted with. We have daily stressors. Daily stressors are those aggravations, those things that cause you to be stressed coming and going to work, coming and going to school, preparing for exams. You could be slightly stressed with this new class format. Again, I'm doing it to help everyone achieve the opportunity to participate in a class lecture other than just reading the class notes and doing the chapter outline. I think this way you'll have a chance to see me, hear my different aspects of the presentation, bring in some life events so that you have a chance to, as we continue to basically have a discussion on what they are. So daily hassles are those everyday situations that we're confronted with. Then we have significant life changes. Uh, and you have to think about what would be a significant life change. So ask yourself, what is a significant life change that will cause stress? Well, would marriage be one? Would graduation from high school, graduation from college be a significant life change? Going into the military, losing a loved one, experiencing a both traumatic and or joyful experience that would change your life. And then we have catastrophes. These are these events, excuse me, these are catastrophes are those events that, well, much like 9/11, much like you could put into context what happened in South Florida, in Parkland, Florida, with the 17 people that lost their lives to a shooter. That's a catastrophe. We may be seeing a catastrophe unfold in the Northeast with this significant weather pattern that's going through there with the storms causing thunder snow. A woman, a teacher at a school up the Northeast, was actually struck by lightning. She lived during a snowstorm. The results of these storms could be catastrophic in terms of the physical damage that may occur, and then the consequential trauma that may also be evident to individuals dealing with the aftermath of the storm. So we have three stressors: daily hassles, significant life changes, and catastrophes. Then as we go through these, we have a natural way of appraising these. Stress appraisal involves the fight or flight paradigm in such a way that we have a determination to make of it, if it's a good stressor or a bad stressor. Okay. Now I put it in that that context, in that a good stressor is one that you experience when, let's say, you're going out on that special date. You get a little amped up. When you if you're an athlete and you have practice, as a performance psychologist, one of the things that I help my clients with is that I get them to understand you play like you practice and you practice like you play. There should be no difference. And so from stress appraisal, is it a challenge or is it a threat? If it's a challenge, that's something that we gladly approach. We want to do well. And our preparation involves getting a little amped up prior to when we actually do perform in whatever way. The threat, as I mentioned before, is something that we want to avoid, get away from. So we go through a process of appraising what they might be. Now, within stress, it involves this concept of thinking critically. Well, we know what that means is that we know that from our previous discussions that stress weakens the body. Stress makes people vulnerable to illness and influences our behavior and consequently our physiology. Recently I mentioned to you an observation that I had during the Winter Olympics when I was watching the snowboarding, and then one of the former athletes that was a narrator said that you'll notice why these people are falling when they hit the ground on their snowboards, and the reference was to where the head goes, the body goes. Okay, the head leans forward, the body goes that way, they fall. Lean backward, the body goes that way, and they fall. If they stay straight, they land nicely and they don't fall. Okay, so behavior follows stress, and the physiological aspects of stress affect the body. So what I mean by that is, if you're stressed and the autonomic nervous system can't function for some reason, and the parasympathetic system is not lowering your stress level in any way, then that stress could lead to what? Well, what could stress lead to? Could stress lead to high blood pressure? Could stress lead to a heart attack? Could stress lead to a stroke? Of course, the answers to these is yes, it can be. So this is a reference to the mind-body relationship. Stress is deadly. We all face stress every single day. There's not a human on the planet that doesn't have some kind of stress in their lives. It's how we deal with it that matters. Okay? Within the concept of stress and the aspects of stress, anger or depression, these are persistent stressors, and unhealthy behaviors are triggered as a result of this type of stress. Okay? Anger can lead to hypertension. It can lead to aggression. It can lead to the consequences of high blood pressure. Depression is just the opposite. You're so totally depressed that you're stressed and anxious about being depressed. And this could lead to headaches, again, high blood pressure, inflammation of the arterial of the blood vessels and other organs. It diminishes the immune or suppresses the immune system. And we're going to see in a moment that stress weakens the body. Weakens the body. And the reason stress weakens the body is because stress is an invader. It's just like a virus or bacteria infection, to where the body will focus on what that is immediately. And as it focuses on the stress immediately, it leaves the back door open, if you will, for something else to occur. And let me give you an example. Athletes are notorious for over preparation. They will train. The result of which is they may not get the required number of hours of sleep that's sufficient to offset all that training. All right? What I mean by that is they might easily get 7 hours of sleep, but they may actually require 10 in order to allow the body to regenerate and muscles to rebuild, if you will, after a daily exercise program, a physical activity. Okay, so the effect over time is that builds up a level of, let's say, manageable fatigue from an athletic point of view, causing stress. The body attacks the stress, leaving it susceptible to colds, flu, and other things like that. And particularly in the wintertime, yours truly here, I normally just get one cold a year. It comes and goes after a week and I'm good. This year I had 2 colds. The second one was really bad. And the effects of it have been that the coughing that I'm experiencing is a result of irritated air pathways. All right? That in and of itself causes me stress because I can't get through a lecture without coughing. That's destructive to the class and it's very aggravating to me. Hence we're having this new format. And I'm hopeful that it works for you. And that's my purpose in this, is that it works for you. And that you're able to review this as we go through more than just sitting in class. You can play it over and over in preparation for exams. All right, so stress in the immune system. Certainly stress can be a function of age, can be a function of nutrition, genetics, your body temperature, your lifestyle, lack of or too much exercise. As I said, now I'm a big advocate of exercise, but when I was doing competitive cycling and I was doing upwards of 90 miles a week, I could tell you that on a sustained basis, that opens up the door for my body to become afflicted with a cold or the flu, or in my case, bronchitis or something like that, because I'm not allowing myself to regenerate and my body to heal. So what stress does is it weakens the body and reduces your ability to ward off other illnesses. Okay, that's the main point I want to make here about how it affects your body. Now, stress in and of itself does not cause cancer, does not cause HIV, it does not cause any of those types of debilitating and potentially deadly diseases. But what it does is it weakens the immune system so significantly that allows those diseases to metastasize, to get worse. Okay? The greater the stress, the greater the level of those types of disease, and that's one of the reasons why medical science has now promoting activities to reduce stress, like mindfulness meditation, where when you breathe through your nose and exhale out your mouth, such as you're actually lowering the level of stress. You're clearing your mind. You're clearing the frontal lobe, your temporal lobes. You can feel it in the parietal lobe in the back of your head. You can feel the stress diminish, and your mind is starting to clear. Well, the body reacts to that, and as you breathe in and meditate and clear your mind, the body reacts into almost a calming. And as your body calms, the stress diminishes, and that's the point. So if you can diminish the stress, you're actually going to help your body heal, even against cancer. Now, people have cured themselves from certain kinds of cancers by thinking positively. We had the discussion of positive thinking and positive attitude when we discussed thinking intelligence and language. So positive attitude is crucial. But also it also helps with our stress reduction. All right, stress and cancer. There's a linkage between stress and the level of cancer, and you can actually, as you calm your body through, let's say, mindfulness meditation, you're calming the stress level and allowing the body to regenerate and fight the cancer. Okay, so also we have the aspect of coronary heart disease. Coronary heart disease is fundamentally clogging of the vessels that nourish the heart muscle. Stress can cause the generation of inflammation, which is associated with heart and other health problems. It inflames the valve, your blood vessels in the veins in your body and the other organs. It affects the lungs, liver, kidneys, the skeletal muscles. It affects your brain. And what I want to talk about now is how we cope with stress. When we get into the discussion of personality in a couple weeks, and actually it's one of the chapters that I really enjoy, because I use the fundamental assessment tools that psychologists have available to assess what personality type is your dominant. All right, and just for a moment, we have 5 personality types, and we've discussed, or we call them 5 personality factors. Okay, and there's 2 words that you can remember these by. They have the identical letters. They're just rearranged. Okay, so what would be, as an introduction into how we cope with stress, is what would be those personality factors? Well, we have canoe, agreeableness, neuroticism, openness, and extroversion. Or the flip side, ocean. I just gave you the answer. They have openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Ocean, canoe are the 2 words made up of the identical same letters. And why is that important? Because it's important in how we approach stress, either from a problem-focused perspective or a emotion-focused perspective. Okay, so what's problem? In problem-focused perspective, we direct our interest on what is causing the stress. Is there a problem? For example, traffic. Okay, coming into Atlanta from 35 miles southwest of here, the closer you get into downtown, the more congested it is. Okay, there's nothing I can do about the congestion. What I can do is how I appraise that congestion. First of all, I know it's going to happen. If I know it's going to happen, I can expect it. And if I expect it, my stress level is lower. So I manage it. I know how fast and how slow I have. I know how to drive and manipulate or maneuver driving in such a way as to not be stressed. With emotion-focused coping, this is fundamentally important and related to your personality, your dominant personality factor. Because your dominant personality factor will tell you how you cope with emotion. Okay? And that's why when we get into personality, this is going to be very important for you. So emotion-focused coping is attempting to reduce stress by avoiding what causes you to be stressed, the emotion that's causing you to be distressed. Okay? It's attending to emotional needs related to the stress reaction. And basically it's with both problem and emotion, you're attending to the cause, but you also want to, as much as you can, avoid the situation. And that leads us to a discussion on a power of personal control. What is power? What is control? Well, as I've said in class, you can only control what involves you. You can't control the weather. You can't control the rise and setting of the sun, the rain. Neither of us control this cold weather. I, for one, wish it was 75 degrees. Some of you probably do too. We're going into spring break in a couple of days. It'd be very lovely if wherever we are here in the southeast, it was 75 degrees or 78 degrees here in middle Georgia or North Georgia. And if you go south, it's going to be 80, 85 in Florida. Man, I love that weather. Excuse me, I take a drink. Okay, so we're looking at how we control ourselves. Perception of control. What controls us? Perceived control is basic to our human functioning. We work within and we live within environments that affect us. So what control do we have over those? Well, the control we have over those is how we think, how we interact, how we ourselves assimilate the situation. Now this goes to a theory called locus of control. And locus of control, there's two types. You have external and internal. External locus of control is the perception, and or belief that something else, somebody else is controlling you. You have no control over events. It's all external. It's either provincial, it's somebody else, it's fate, it's not you. It's like in the first Santa Claus movie, Tim Allen came out of the house and saw Santa Claus on the roof and yelled at him. And Santa Claus was startled, slipped off the roof, and died. Tim Allen says, "Oh, not my fault." Well, it was, because had he not yelled at Santa, Santa would still be on the roof. But Tim Allen, practicing external locus of control, blaming the fall on something other than him. Internal locus control is the opposite. It's the perception that you can control things that you're able to control. You can control how you think, you can control how you act, you can control how you what you say, you can control what you put in your mouth. To an extent, you can control where you go and who you go with, things of that nature. You have control over self. Whether or not you accept it is another discussion. But each of us have self-control. We have the opportunity for self-control, and we certainly have the responsibility for self-control, self-responsibility, and self-accountability. Okay? We lead into now the next aspect of what your slide says, self-control, which is the ability to control your impulses and perhaps delay short-term gratification for greater long-term rewards. What does that mean? Well, savings, setting up a savings account. Okay, putting $100 a month into a savings account for the rest of your professional life. What that is that you're delaying the gratification of using that $100 for a later point in time. Okay, it's like if you're an adult and you're sitting in a bar having that third or fourth beer. You don't necessarily need it. You push it away. I can delay the gratification of having another beer in order to get home safe and sound. Okay. Same way with shopping. I don't have to go out and buy that extra that extra pair of clothes or that extra pair of shoes. I can save and buy it when I absolutely need it. So self-control is essential to this concept of locus of control, and in dealing with stress goes to both emotion and problem solving or problem coping methods to reducing stress. It invariably, though, comes within this concept of optimism and pessimism. All right, and again, back to our discussion on thinking. We have positive thinking, positive attitude, negativity, positivity, optimism, pessimism. It goes to the concept of, you see this bottle here, there's not much water in it, is there? Okay, but let's, for example, envision that the water level is up to the label. So how do you see it? If you see the water level here as half empty, that's pessimism, okay? Which anticipates negative outcomes, which says it's half empty, I have less to drink. Now, you might say, as the water level is here, it's half full. Optimism. Half full means, hey, I still have more to drink. I'm fortunate. There's still some left. Okay? Again, optimists expect to control, to cope well with stressful events, and enjoy good health. Okay? These are the things. And you can sit there as you're looking at this video of me and perform a simple experiment. Say to yourself, the glass is half full, and experience how that makes you feel. You feel a sense of loss, a sense of despair to a point. I have less water to drink. But if you in turn and say that bottle is half full, well, there's a sense of optimism. Hey, I'm good. I'm glad. I'm happy. I have half a bottle of water left. That's good. And so optimism, pessimism, and there's a branch of psychology today called positive psychology that looks at this. It doesn't look at the world or promote looking at the world from rose-colored glasses. What it promotes is how we look at the world and that environment around us, how we interact with one another, how we conduct ourselves in a positive way, optimistic way. Okay, dealing with issues on an optimistic manner, knowing that things will get better. It may take some time, it may take some grieving, it may take a little anger, but you're coping with it and you're managing it from an optimistic perspective. Okay, so then also revolves the need for social support. Look, we're social animals. We were put on this earth to socialize, to be with other people. We're not put on earth to live in caves. There are people that do that, of course, but the majority of humankind is not that way. We relish families, we relish companionship, a significant other, friends. There are people that, and it's really evident today, that have chosen not to marry or have a significant other. Rather, they choose to have 4 or 5 very good close friends which they pal around with, they go on vacations with, but that's the social support. All of these relationships promote happiness and health. And the promotion of happiness and health, the aspect of feel good, calms our cardiovascular system, which lowers blood pressure and our stress hormone levels and reduces stress. It helps us to fight illness by fostering stronger immune functioning. Okay, so the happier we are. I had a stepmother. Her name was Patricia, and she was in real estate. And one day I asked her, I said, "Hey Pat, why are you whistling? Why do you whistle all the time?" She looks at me quite frankly and says, makes me happy. I whistle because it makes me feel good. You might do that. You may be someone that likes to hum to themselves, maybe sing a little verse to yourself during the day. And it allows us to deal with the everyday stress of life in support of being happy. Um, one of my favorite people to reference in this context is Walt Disney. You all are familiar with Walt Disney World, Walt Disney and Disneyland in California, and Disney World in Orlando, and you're familiar from childhood, familiar with all the characters that Walt Disney created. Certainly focus on a child, but have significant adult meanings. For example, the Seven Dwarfs. Okay? Now, while you're giggling and rolling your eyes, think about the job that the Seven Dwarfs were created to have. They were miners. Mining is one of the worst, hardest jobs on the planet. You spend 8, 10, 12 hours or longer in a hole in the ground, breathing in God knows what, creating all kinds of bad things, including cancer. Eyesight is poor. You know, you're down there, there's no sunshine, there's no clean running water. There's really, the bathroom facilities aren't really good. So it's bad news, but you do it because it's a job. All right? So what are they doing? They were whistling. And what were they whistling and singing? Whistle while I work. Okay? Again, it's a feel-good thing. It's the process by which we make the decision to do whatever is necessary to feel good about our life. And that's a significant stress reducer in and of itself. All right? Now, managing stress. I think we've talked a lot so far about aerobic exercise. We certainly talked about relaxation and meditation, and we haven't really talked a lot about, as your book points out, faith communities and health. All these are relative to how we combat stress. Okay? So aerobic exercise. Sustained aerobic exercise, 30 minutes a day, 3 days a week, has been proven through scientific research to lower your blood pressure, to clear your mind. If you're able to do it 5 days a week, it has a significant greater impact in terms of lowering your stress. And if you're fortunate enough to exercise an hour a day, then it doubles the impact. You have a gym facility here on campus that is really quite outstanding. They have 4 floors, if not 5. They have rock climbing, swing pool, basketball. I think there's 2 floors of weights and aerobic exercise equipment. And you should be involved with that. What does it do? What does aerobic exercise do? It reduces depression and anxiety. It helps it helps to weaken and influence the genetic risk of obesity, and it increases the quality of life and the quantity of life. All right, aerobic exercise is good. You can get it from just walking, swimming, riding a bike, dancing, jogging, running. You can get it even through yoga. So aerobic exercise is very healthy and an excellent stress reducer. All right. Relaxation meditation. Mindfulness meditation has been proven to calm the mind. Provides relief from headaches, high blood pressure, anxiety, even insomnia. And it helps the body to heal in many ways. Mindfulness meditation specifically is a reflective practice. And I strongly encourage you to research it again and to adapt it as a practice. Okay? It focuses on the concept of breathing. Breathing in through your nose, exhaling through the open mouth. Just simple as that. Start out 5 minutes a day, then build up to 10, 15. Often people have a little background music. We're not talking headbanging music, classic rock, or any of that. We're talking about gentle music. You might call it yoga music or spa-like music. You can go out in Pandora and get relaxation music. It helps to calm the brain, and then when you calm the brain, it calms the body. And when you calm the brain and the body, you calm all the emotions. Okay? Now, what about happiness? But all this has to do with happiness to some extent, isn't it? But doesn't it? You know, I know many of you have a Twitter account. I have a Twitter account. I'm not as active on it as I used to be, but one of the people that I'm connected to on Twitter every day tweets out, "Another day vertical, another day blessed." He's happy. He's happy about being alive. And that is a outlook. That is an eternal locus of control, an optimistic viewpoint that he has about his life. And that what that says is no matter what comes towards me today, I'm just very thankful I'm alive, because I'm not too happy about the flip side of that. You know, like Kenny Chesney, the country singer, has a song. He says, everybody wants to go to heaven, but not today." Well, that's it, right? And it also deals with how resilient we are over stressful events in our lives. Okay? If we learn to cope with stress, we can build up a level of manageable adversity to that stress. We've been there, done that before. This is not something I need to be bothered with. I'm just not going to allow it. That's a mindset, isn't it? Just not going to let it bother me. I know I'm going to have an exam here. I know what to expect. I'm going to prepare, and I'm going to do my very best. I'm not going to worry about it. And that's how we build up resilience. Okay? Happy people perceive the world as a safer place, don't we? Now that could be a little pie in the sky to an extent, but on the other side, it's not. And what I mean by that is that, like my stepmother, whistling all the time, very aware of her immediate world around her and the world following 9/11. But what she decided and elected to do was take the self-responsibility rather than to let all that negative influence affect her. She focused on things that make her happy for that day, which was whistling. Okay? And the consequence of which was she was able to handle business stress, family stress, traffic, all that sort of thing. Now, within happiness, the concept of happiness, there's two things I want you to think about. You have the feel good, do good phenomenon, and then we have the subjective well-being phenomenon. The feel good, do good phenomenon is when you feel good by helping others. It's going down to the food bank at Thanksgiving, or the soup kitchen rather, and helping serve the less fortunate. You don't do it for anything other than how it makes you feel and the fact that you are helping others feel good. Opening the door for someone, helping a senior across the street with their groceries, going next door and mowing the neighbor's grass, doing things like that promotes a feel-good feeling. And then we have the subjective well-being feeling, self-perceived happiness or satisfaction with life, which is that comment, another day vertical, another day blessed. Okay? Then how do we deal with the emotional ups and downs? It all culminates into really that aspect. How do we deal with everyday life? Okay? Positive emotions rise early in the middle of the day and then drop. Which is what the textbook said. I am a morning person. I am happier in the morning than I am at night. That doesn't mean I'm not happy at night. When my fiance and I go out dancing or go to dinner, I'm happy. I'm happy. But what it means is that each of us have a time in the day that we're the happiest at, naturally. I like to see the sun go up. I like the freshness of the sun, the warmth of the sun. You may be the same way. Others might relish in the quiet of the evening, the quiet of late night. That could be where you feel most comfortable. Okay, duration also the duration of our emotions may be overestimated, and resilience underestimated in the way that we handle things during the parts of the day. Okay, in the morning, like I said, I feel much better, and I'm able to cope with things a little easier than in the afternoon. In the afternoon, you may get a little tired, and the evening wears on, you get sleepy, and so things might bother you a little bit. When we talk about abnormal behavior, and I have taught abnormal behavior here at Georgia State, one of the things we look at is insomnia. What causes insomnia? Well, one of the things that causes insomnia is worry. In the middle of the night, you start to worry about a problem or a situation you have absolutely no control over. At that point in time, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, you wake up and you can't go back to sleep because all you do is focus on one little nitpicky issue that can easily be solved the next morning or maybe through a phone call in the afternoon. That's what we're talking about here, okay? Being able to cope with things in order to allow us to have a healthy a lower stressful life. All right. Then what are the predictors of happiness? Well, the textbook points out we have genes, personal history, and culture. Genes is your genetic makeup, how you're wired. Okay. To what extent are you wired? Personal history is your family history, ancestral history, which goes to genetics as well. Your personal experiences in life. All right, and then the culture in which you're brought into, the culture around you. All these affect how you're able to deal with stress. All right, the textbook provides a really nice graph called Research Findings. I want you to take a look at that and review it. It has a nice description of what to do. Scientifically proven ways to have a happier life. Laugh a lot. Choose to smile. Choose, it requires less muscles to smile than it does to frown. It's that simple. Smiling is contagious, and you ought to think about that. Instead of frowning all the time, think about happy times. Get your happy face. What was that song a few years ago? Don't worry, be happy. And that goes to what we're talking about right here. All right, scientific ways to have a happier life. Take up exercise. Take up aerobic exercise. Make sure you get enough sleep. Once upon a time, 8 hours was standard. Now I believe it's 7. We're all different. Some people can get away with 5 hours. Some people need 10. Give priority to your close relationships. Focus on your significant other. Focus on the people around you. Relish and celebrate their life. Be thankful for that. Focus beyond yourself. Look towards how you can help someone else. How can you help a fellow student prepare for an exam, or write an essay question, or just help them in some fashion, maybe dealing with loneliness, dealing with being homesick. What about counting your blessings, being thankful for what you have in your life? And then, of course, your textbook points out nurturing your spiritual self. Having faith is so very important to happiness. So very important. And then finally, the last slide is I want you to think about how you handle stress right now and how you're going to handle stress moving forward. I want you to think seriously about investing in aerobic exercise. I want you to think about your locus of control. And if you find yourself thinking or feeling that you're more in the external locus of control, I want you to consider the benefits of internal locus of control. And how do you see the world? How do you see the world around you? I understand from the eyes of a college undergraduate student it can be kind of stressful and perhaps maybe negative depending on your situation. Sometimes you may have problems with financial aid. Sometimes you may have problems where you live. Sometimes you may have roommate issues. Okay, you're away from home. Freshman, sophomore years are very hard on a young person. All right, but that doesn't mean you can't be optimistic. Because why are you here in this university? You're here in this university to get an education, right? And that education is as the focal point of a job. So optimism has to do with, if I just stick with the program, I just show up and do my coursework, I put in 100%, I focus on my performance, I'm going to graduate and I'm going to get a job. That's optimism, all right? And how do you find your own happiness? I want you to think about this. I want you to go through these questions, these 4 questions. The last slide of the lecture. How do you handle stress? What is your locus of control? How do you see the world, through positive view or negative view? And then finally, how do you define happiness? How do you find your happiness? Okay? I hope you've enjoyed this first video. I hope I can get it up on YouTube so it works. And I will see you next time.